can become death, the destroyer of worlds.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The terrible, this is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. You always call the humanity. We've had a problem here.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Epic fails of history.
There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure. Paulo Coelho. Happy President's Day, and thank you for tuning in to Epic Fails of History. I'm Eric Slader, and this is episode 7 of the podcast. If you're still listening to the show, I just want to say thank you for your patience. My original goal was to have at least one episode up a month, but so far I've only been able to get like one episode up every other month, if I'm lucky, thanks to Murphy's Law. But I'm hoping to be more consistent going forward, so I guess we'll see how that works out. Today's show is sort of a mini episode I put together with my girlfriend, Meghan Kaminski, as sort of an attempt to document our trip to Washington, D.C., where Ben Thompson and I were invited to do an event at the Smithsonian's American History Museum to promote the debut of our newest book, Epic Fails, Not So Great Presidents. I also want to give a huge shout out to Solid State Books for hosting us for our book reading. Oh yeah, and stay after the episode for a special sneak peek of the new book. So, I'm Eric Slader. I'm here with Meghan Kaminski.
Hi.
And we're currently driving from Green Cove Springs to Orlando, where we're flying out to DC. So yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm still waking up. It's 9 o'clock, and today is, what's today? Friday, January 18th. Funny story, we're heading to DC because of books. My co-author and I, sorry, I'll get there. My co-author and I are supposed to, we're scheduled to do a book signing at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum tomorrow, but due to the government shutdown, yeah, basically, the
Smithsonian's closed, basically.
Yeah, the Smithsonian's closed.
Had this planned for months, did not factor in Trump.
Yeah, we didn't really expect the government to be this dysfunctional. I mean, this is the longest government shutdown in history, in American history.
And you have your book signing scheduled during
because of course I do. This is very on brand for us. If you've been listening to this podcast, or if you've been following the books, the book tour and all that, it's just been one thing after another. So we're just along for the ride. We'll be in DC either way, because we bought the plane tickets. So yeah, Ben and I are going to be showing up at the Smithsonian whether it's closed or not. But luckily we do have a backup plan. There's other bookstores there, and we are doing an event tonight once we fly in. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. Where's the off button? Well, we're here at the airport. We got here a good 4 hours early, and of course the flight's delayed.
Of course.
I can't say I'm all that surprised. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, we'll check back in a moment, I guess, once we figure out what's going on.
The good thing is that we have heard from our Airbnb guy, which I was getting a little bit nervous about. You know, staying in strangers' houses.
Well, we're here on the plane, so yay for small miracles.
Finally.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to Snorlax out.
Yeah, same.
We'll catch up with you guys soon. The time is now 5:23 p.m. We just arrived in Washington, D.C., and it is very, very cold.
stupid cold.
Yeah.
This better prove to you how much I love you, because I swore an oath on my life to never again see snow. And yet here I am. There's some snow.
Hopefully we can Uber over to the bookstore on time.
It's cold.
Hey everyone, we're about 10 minutes out from the bookstore now. Unfortunately, we ran into some traffic delays on the way. Our driver's great. He's doing the best he can with the situation. But I told Ben to get started without me, and hopefully I'll be there in time to sign some books.
How long does it take you to write books?
We wrote. So the first two we wrote right after we got the deal. I think we had a 3-month deadline or something like that.
Yeah.
So the first drafts, at least, we wrote overnight. Like it was constant research.
It was fast. Yeah. Generally speaking, it takes like a year. We had a bunch of the research done on the first ones already. So with the stuff that we're doing, right? Like, because it's history, you don't get to make the stories up, right? You have to talk about what really happened, and sometimes it's tricky to get the real story of what happened, right? So you have to read a bunch of different versions of the stories, and you have to figure out which ones sound like they make sense, which ones don't. And so the research takes half a year by itself sometimes, and then you can write the other ones pretty quick depending on how motivated you are. But yeah, we wrote all 4 of these in 2 years.
That sounds right.
Yeah, we wrote 4 books in 2 years, which was a massively aggressive schedule.
When did the Wright brothers die, and how? Like, did they die normally, or like did they die from making something?
They died normally. They both. One of them got sick. He was in his 50 something when he got sick and died, and then the other brother lived to be fairly old. He lived in like 40. He lived to be 80 or something. Wilbur gets, they fly, right? They make the first flight, and then they start building bigger and better airplanes, and everything's going really well. Wilbur gets sick maybe 20 years after they learn how to fly. He gets sick and dies. Orville lives a whole lot longer than that. Orville was flying the first time anybody ever died in a plane crash, though. He was going to demonstrate the planes to the Army, and he's like, oh, we're going to take this guy up, and we're going to fly him around and show you how it works. And then that plane crashed, and the guy died. He was the first person to ever die in a plane crash. That's kind of an interesting story, though, because there was another dude, Benjamin Foulos or something like that. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. But, so Orville goes up, he's flying around, he crashes, a guy dies, right? And the Army's like, all right, maybe we don't want airplanes. And Orville's like, no, it's cool. You want airplanes. They're gonna be good. They're gonna be good for war. And so they take another guy who volunteers. He's like, I'll go up in an airplane. I'll probably be fine. I probably won't crash and die. And he goes in, and they take him up, and they fly around, and they land, and it's successful. And so this guy, Benjamin Foulos, I think is how you pronounce his name, he ends up, he's like, all right, I'm going to learn how to fly. And there's only like 10 airplanes in the world at this time, right? But they give him one of them. And he's like, I'm going to learn how to fly. And this guy, for the next like 5 years, the entire Air Force, the entire U.S. Air Force is just one dude, just flying around. And then he eventually trains the rest of the Air Force, and like it was part of the Army at the time, but like the whole Air Force was one guy for like 5 years. Yeah, the dude that I was talking about glued all the feathers to himself, right?
Yeah.
If you saw that in a movie, you'd be like, all right, this is dumb, right? This is like a silly...
Yeah, I've even heard in some cases with like movies based on real events, sometimes they'll actually change it a little bit to make it sound more realistic.
Yeah.
In fact, the real story is
There was one I saw recently, and they had to like stop the movie halfway through, and they had to put up a little thing of like, seriously, this is a real story.
Yeah.
This actually happened. It's not like...
Part of the reason I got into my history blog initially, which really led to all this, was I feel like everyone makes mistakes, but we're all supposed to learn from those mistakes. And history is full of examples of things we can learn.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're here at one of the cheapest Airbnbs I think I've ever seen.
$25 a night.
So would you say we got our money's worth?
Yeah, it looks like it's worth $25 a night.
The door handle fell off as soon as we went to open the door. The place barely has warm water. The walls are thin as paper.
I mean, at least the host was nice.
That's true. Yeah, it could be worse. We haven't been murdered yet.
Not yet.
That's always a plus. But yeah, it's an adventure. Hopefully we make it back home in one piece.
Yeah, I hope so.
God, it's cold. Hey again, today's Saturday, January 19th. We survived last night, barely made it to the bookstore. Not quite in time, but in time to sign some books. Ben and I went out for dinner with a comic book artist who actually worked on Ben's books years ago, which is really cool. So it was cool to kind of geek out with him and, had a good time. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm just hungry.
So yeah, we're going to go grab a really late breakfast and then head over to the Smithsonian, which is, as far as we know, still closed.
Hashtag epic fail.
Yep.
Hi, this is Ben Thompson and Eric Slader. We are outside the Smithsonian Institution American History Museum. There's the Washington Monument. We are here today supposed to do a book reading for Epic Fails, the Not So Great Presidents, a book about the great failures of the American government over the course of history. But as of today, all Smithsonian museums and the National Zoo are closed today for the government shutdown. So we can't. I feel like we're weirdly on brand with this. We should get the money.
It's kind of weird how it worked out, we weren't planning this, obviously. Like, the only reason we're here is because we got invited by the Smithsonian to come speak,
The Smithsonian invited us to come talk, and we came, and we bought plane tickets, and he came from Florida, and I came from Seattle, and we got hotels, and we're locked out of our own book reading. So,
just our luck.
Yeah, if you want to buy a copy, it's available on Amazon. Epic Fails, Not So Great Presidents. This is Ben and Eric. This is our book tour. This is our lives. Bye.
Hey again, we're at the Tyson Center Mall in Virginia, right outside the Barnes & Noble. Ben and I just signed a couple copies that they had on hand. So yeah, all things considered, even though the Smithsonian was shut down, I think it was a pretty successful trip. Ben and I went to this really cool bookstore called Politics and Prose, and we did a stock signing, and we're just about to head out for a flight back to Florida, where it's thankfully much warmer.
It's so cold here.
Yeah, Meg is completely over the cold and the dreary snow and the chilly wind. We're so bundled up. I think it's pretty obvious we're from a warmer climate to everyone around us. But yeah, it's been a fun weekend. Some twists and turns along the way, but I think it all worked out. So we'll probably be back here in town on the next book tour, possibly in April, with the fourth book coming out. We haven't quite worked out the details yet. Hopefully the Smithsonian will be open by then. If not, we're going to have bigger problems, I think. So yeah, that was our DC trip. Once again, my timing could not have been more perfect. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge all the federal workers who went weeks without getting paid. For all my complaints, they're the ones who were really hurt by this shutdown. During the trip, every time I came across a TSA worker at the airport, I actually thanked them and told them to hang in there. No matter your political leanings, I think it's important that we come together as a nation and make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. Like we said earlier in the episode, Epic Fails Not So Great Presidents is available now. A quick heads up to all my North Florida listeners. I'll be at the downtown Jacksonville Public Library for this year's Jack's Book Fest on Saturday, February 23rd, 2019. And if you don't want to come see me, that's cool, I guess, but you should at least come for R.L. Stine, because that dude's awesome. As always, feel free to message me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and if you're bored, give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Ben and I will be teaming up again for another tour in either late April or early May for our fourth book, so I'll hopefully have details on that soon. In the meantime, we've got more episodes coming your way. Our next episode is an epic 2-parter on the Civil War, so stay tuned.
Epic Fails, Not So Great Presidents by Erik Slader and Ben Thompson. Since the first president took office in 1789, 44 men have served as the highest-ranking politician in the United States. Each has wielded executive power over one of the foremost countries in the world, serving not only as political leader, but also as commander-in-chief of all American military forces. Each of these men, from George Washington to Donald Trump, has a unique story, unique accomplishments, and, well, unique failures. William Henry Harrison first gained national recognition as a war hero in 1811 during the Battle of Tippecanoe. Governor Harrison led an army of 1,000 men to take on Tecumseh's Rebellion, a Native American tribe who were sick and tired of American immigrants moving in and taking all their land. During his campaign, as many as 700 Shawnee warriors ambushed Harrison's troops. Despite not having the home field advantage, Harrison and his men held their ground against wave after wave of attack, managing to win the battle. His military success branded him a war hero in the eyes of many Americans, who admired Harrison for protecting lands they felt were rightfully theirs. Years later, during the 1840 presidential election, William Henry Harrison ran as the Whig Party candidate with John Tyler as his running mate. Together, the two used the slogan, "Tippecanoe and Tyler too." Harrison won the election in a landslide, beating out President Martin Van Buren, making William Henry Harrison the 9th President of the United States. On March 4, 1841, President Harrison gave the longest inauguration speech ever, in the middle of a blizzard, without his coat. Exactly 1 month later, on April 4, 1841, Harrison died of pneumonia. The office of the president has been known to attract a certain type of person. There's certainly a level of ego, ambition, and fortitude one requires to step into the spotlight, knowing that you will forever be remembered, but that you'll also become a very visible target for those who disagree with you. Ideally, that drive and courage are also coupled with humility and respect, knowing that it's an honor to serve one's country at the highest level. It takes an exceptional person to be the leader of the free world, and sometimes that person is unique in more ways than one. John Quincy Adams, the son of former President John Adams, was the first president to denounce slavery, reduce the national debt from $16 million to $5 million, and spoke fluent French, Italian, Russian, German, and Latin. English, too. Oh, and while he was Secretary of State, he negotiated the purchase of Florida from Spain. So you can also thank him for that, I suppose. He was also a little, unorthodox. John Quincy Adams was a very eccentric guy, even for 19th century presidents. For starters, he enjoyed taking a long early morning swim in the Potomac River, in the nude. If that's not weird enough for you, John Quincy Adams also once approved an expedition to the center of the earth in search of mole people? The voyage was scrapped, however, once Andrew Jackson took office, but not because a mission to the Earth's core was something that belonged in a cheesy 1950s sci-fi movie, but rather because some say Jackson believed the Earth was flat. Franklin Pierce was once arrested for running over a lady with his horse, while president. Similarly, Ulysses S. Grant was also once pulled over for speeding, on his horse, also as president. Franklin Pierce was elected president because of his moderate stances on a lot of issues, and because he was able to get along with just about everyone. But when he left office, he was hated by just about everyone. During his tenure in office, he could best be described as charming, indecisive, and alcoholic. He also has one of the most tragic backstories since the Punisher first showed up in Marvel Comics. Pierce's life was one of constant tragedy. All 3 of his children died young, 2 of them from disease, and then his son Benny was killed in a train wreck in front of his parents not long after the election. Then, just 6 weeks after the inauguration, his vice president, William R. King, died. The Union deteriorated around him, and he was abandoned by his own party. As he was leaving the White House, Pierce is quoted as saying, "There's nothing left to do but get drunk." And that's exactly what he did. Pierce returned home in defeat. After his wife passed away, he took up binge drinking as a full-time gig and became a hermit. To say that Warren G. Harding's term as president was a troubled one would be like saying that maybe the Star Wars prequels could have been better. We've had some pretty corrupt politicians in the Oval Office, but few hold a candle to the Harding administration. Chester A. Arthur might have been one of the most corrupt politicians elected as president, but Warren G. Harding's entire cabinet was brimming with corruption. After World War I, Harding was elected to the presidency with the help of big business and the empty promise of a return to normalcy, a chance for the American people to heal after the war. It was anything but. Sure, he eased restrictions on immigration, fought for civil rights equality, and was involved in numerous foreign treaties, including the Treaty of Versailles. But he also rolled back some of the policies that combated corporate corruption in Washington and gave tax breaks to his wealthy friends. And then there's the Teapot Dome scandal. In case it's ever a question on who wants to be a millionaire, the Teapot Dome scandal involved one of the biggest white-collar crimes in American politics. President Harding's Secretary of the Interior, Albert B. Fall, was paid off to lease out American oil fields to private investors. The Teapot Dome fields in Wyoming were given to Harry F. Sinclair of Sinclair Oil, while an oil deposit in Elk Hills, California was given to Fall's buddy Edward L. Doheny. Turns out that both Doheny and Sinclair paid Fall over $400,000, approximately $4.8 million now. Albert B. Fall was found guilty of selling America off to the highest bidder and was thrown into prison, becoming the first former presidential cabinet member to serve jail time for crimes committed while in office. There's a reason Warren G. Harding is often at the bottom of the list of worst presidents ever, because he really did suck at his job, and might have even been impeached if he hadn't died unexpectedly of a heart attack. Harding himself once said, "I am not fit for this office and never should have been here."